Welcome to lesson 4 of my Python series, lists. Lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. The length of a list is how many items it has, and this can be found using the len, short for length, function. Each item in a list has its own index number counting up from 0. So we have this list here, and it has 3 items, so if you call the length function, you'll get 3. And then this is index 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. So it starts from 0. A list item at a specified index can be modified. So this is how you access a list item at a specified index. You just use brackets and then put the index. And then you can also change its value by just setting it to a new value as you would with a variable. And you can also append new items to a list using the append function. For loops can be used to iterate over or go through a list. So for item in list, do action. So just like how we had the range function, which created a sequence, you can use a list in the same way. Write a program that prints the sum of the numbers in a list. So let's say we have a list and we want to print its sum. We can just loop over it with a for loop. So for num in my list. And we also need a sum variable, which will start at 0. We'll just add that number to the sum. And then we'll just print the sum at the end. So we get 33. Write a program that takes a list and creates a new list with only the even numbers from the original list. So we'll loop through this list again. For num in my list. And we need to check if it's even. So we'll say if num mod 2 is equal to 0. And now we need a new list, so we'll make a new list, and this will just begin as empty, and then we'll append to it inside of this if statement. So we'll do new list dot append num. And then after, we'll just print the new list. So we get only the even numbers from this list. Write a program that takes a list and creates a new list with only the items at odd indexes from the original list. So this is a little different because we actually have to keep track of the indexes. So we can use an index variable and start at 1 because we're only taking the odd indexes. And then we can use a while loop. So let's say while index is less than length of my list. And note that we're using less than instead of less than or equal to because the last index will be 1 less than the length. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's 6 items because it starts at 0. Then we also need a new list, so new list will be empty list. Then we'll just append whichever item is at that index to this new list. So my list at this index, and then we'll add 2 to the index. So if we print the new list after the while loop, we get 8, 9, and 2 because those are index positions 1, 3, and 5. Write a program that takes a list of numbers and creates a new list that contains the squared values of all the numbers in the original list. So make a new list again, and then we have to loop through my list, so we'll just use a for loop. For num in my list, and then to the new list, we'll append that num squared. And then we'll just print the new list. So we get all the numbers squared. Write a program that takes a list of strings as input and returns a new list that contains only the strings that start with the letter A. So we have a list of strings, and we want only the strings that start with A. We can actually index strings the same way we do lists. So to check for the first item of a string, the first letter of a string, we would do string at index 0. So we can use that to check if the first letter is A. So we'll loop through the list first. So for string in my list, if string at index position 0 equals A, and we'll just assume they're all lowercase, then we'll append that to the new list. Dot append string. and then we'll just print the new list. So we got only the fruits that started with A. Write a program that takes a list of strings and creates a new list that contains only the strings with more than 5 characters. So we can actually call the length function on strings as well, and that'll just tell us the amount of characters in the string. So we'll use that for this. So for string in my list, if length of the string is equal to 5, then we'll append it to the new list. And then we'll print the new list. So you get apple and peach. Write a program that takes a list of numbers as input and returns a new list that contains only the unique numbers from the original list. So we have this list here, and we want to eliminate any duplicates to put in the new list. So we don't want any numbers to repeat. For num in my list, if num not in the new list yet, then we'll append it. So new list.append num. And that's pretty much it. Then we'll just print the new list. So each number only appears once. A new program that takes two lists of equal length and creates a new list that contains only the elements that are common to both lists. So we can just loop through one of them, it doesn't really matter which, because they're the same length. So for num in list 1, and then we'll check if it's also in list 2. So if num in list 2, and we'll also, let's just eliminate duplicates, so we'll also check if it's in the new list already, and num not in new list, then we'll append it. So new list.append num, and then we'll just print it. So we get 8 and 6. So this 8 does appear twice in this, but we're only appending it once. Write a program that prints the largest number in a list. So we basically want to go through this list and keep track of whichever the largest number so far is. So, and whenever we find one that's larger than that, we'll make that the new largest. So we'll start largest. We can just start it at the first item of the list, and then we'll loop through the list. So for num in my list, if num is greater than largest, then that becomes the new largest. So largest equals num. So by the time we get to the end, the largest number, in this case 9, will be the largest. So we'll print that. And we get 9. Write a program that creates a password with a specified amount of letters, numbers, and symbols and shuffles them. So here's just some useful functions for this. Random.choice, which is from the random module, chooses a random item from a list. Random.shuffle shuffles items in a list. And .join joins the elements of a list into a string. So we have a list for all the letters, the numbers, and the symbols, and then we just get input from the user for how much they want for each. So we'll just use some for loops. So for num in range number letters, we'll append a random letter from the letters list. So to the password. So password.append random.choice from letters. And then we'll do the same thing for numbers and symbols. So numbers, random.choice numbers, and then symbols. Random.choice from symbols. But now we want to shuffle the password so that the letters, numbers, and symbols aren't in that order. So we'll say random.shuffle password, and that'll shuffle all the items. And then we want to convert it to a string because currently it's still in list form. So to do that, we'll use the join function. So it takes a string and then dot join and then your list. So it will separate all the items by this. In this case, we just want an empty string because we don't want any spaces or anything in between the letters. And then we'll just print the password. And we have to set this equal to password as well. So we'll put in let's just say 8 letters, 3 numbers, and 1 symbol. So we get this. It has 8 letters, 3 numbers, and 1 symbol, but they're all shuffled, and this is a string. That concludes this lesson. I will leave all the solutions in the description.